This is Trending Daily and I'm Makhdoom Shahabuddin. Tonight's discussion is not just about a policy announcement or a routine government decision. What we are witnessing is the intersection of geopolitics, energy security and economic survival. When a Prime Minister addresses the nation and announcing austerity measures that affect the entire country, from government offices to schools, from fuel consumption to public spending, it signals that the situation is serious. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif recently addressed the nation regarding the rapidly deteriorating situation in the Middle East and its potential consequences for Pakistan. His speech contained three major elements: condemnation of regional attacks, acknowledgement of rising global oil prices, and the announcement of strict austerity measures within Pakistan. But the real question is, why now? What exactly is happening in the region that forced Islamabad to take these steps? And how will these decisions affect ordinary Pakistanis? Tonight we analyze the situation in depth. Ladies and gentlemen, the Middle East is once again at the center of a geopolitical storm. Over the past weeks, tensions between Iran, Israel and several regional actors have escalated dramatically. Military actions, retaliatory strikes and threats against shipping routes have created an environment of instability that extends far beyond the region. For countries like Pakistan, the crisis is not just political, it is deeply economic. The Middle East is the world's energy hub. A significant portion of global oil production comes from Gulf countries such as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. When tensions rise in this region, the first and most immediate consequence is a shock in the global energy market. This is exactly what we are witnessing today. Global crude oil prices have surged sharply. According to Prime Minister's address, crude oil prices that were around $60 per barrel have crossed the $100 mark. For energy importing countries, this is a dangerous development. Pakistan is one of those countries. To understand why the government is concerned, we need to understand Pakistan's energy structure. Pakistan imports a large portion of its oil and gas from Gulf countries. The country's transport system, electricity production, and industrial operations rely heavily on imported petroleum products. This means that when global oil prices rise dramatically, Pakistan's economic pressure increases almost immediately. Higher oil prices lead to increased import bills, pressure on foreign exchange reserves, rising inflation, higher fuel prices for consumers, increased electricity generation costs. In simple terms, when oil becomes expensive internationally, life becomes expensive domestically. And this is exactly the challenge that the government is trying to manage. During his speech, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif began by addressing the humanitarian and political dimension of the crisis. He expressed deep sorrow over the reported martyrdom of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei and members of his family, describing it as a tragic development for the region. He also condemned Israeli attacks on Iran and expressed solidarity with countries that have faced threats or attacks during the escalation. The Prime Minister specifically condemned attacks on Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain and other Gulf states. His message was clear: instability in the Gulf threatens the entire region. He emphasized that Pakistan considers the security of Gulf nations to be closely linked with its own security. Pakistan has long-standing strategic, economic and diplomatic relationships with these countries. Billions of Pakistani workers work in the Gulf, sending billions of dollars in remittances back home. Therefore, instability in the Gulf does not remain limited to Middle East. It directly affects Pakistan's economy and society. One of the most important parts of Prime Minister's speech was his candid acknowledgement of economic reality. He stated clearly that Pakistan does not control global oil and gas prices. These prices are determined by international markets and geopolitical developments. This is an important point. Governments can regulate taxes, subsidies and distribution systems, but they cannot control international commodity markets. When global oil prices increase dramatically, governments face difficult choices. They can absorb the cost through subsidies, increase public debt, or pass the cost to consumers. Each option carries serious consequences. Subsidies strain the national budget, borrowing increases debt, passing the cost to consumers leads to inflation. The Prime Minister acknowledged this dilemma openly. He stated that increasing fuel prices was a very difficult decision, and he described it. His mind said there was no alternative, but his heart worried about the burden on the poor. This statement reflects the political and social tensions surrounding economic decisions in the developing countries. To address the crisis and reduce pressure on national resources, the government announced a series of austerity measures. These measures are designed to reduce fuel consumption, cut government spending, and demonstrate that the leadership is also sharing the burden. Let us examine measures one by one. For the next 2 months, fuel allocations for government vehicles will be reduced by 50%. However, ambulances will be exempt from this restriction. This decision is significant because government departments collectively consume large amounts of fuel through official transport. Reducing fuel consumption at the institutional level can help decrease national expenditure. At the same time, exempting ambulances ensures that essential medical services remain unaffected. Another major measure is the decision to ground 60% of government vehicles for the next 2 months. This step aims to drastically reduce fuel consumption across ministries and departments. Government vehicle fleets often represent a significant portion of operational expenses. Limiting their use is intended to send a strong signal of fiscal discipline. The Prime Minister also announced that cabinet ministers, advisors, and special assistants will voluntarily give up to 2 months of salaries and allowances. Additionally, salaries of members of parliament will be reduced by 25%. Such measures are often symbolic, but symbolism can be politically important during times of economic hardship. They are meant to convey that leadership is willing to share the burden rather than imposing it solely on the citizens. Another major decision involves reducing non-salary expenditures of government departments by 20%. In addition, a complete ban has been placed on the purchase of new items for offices. This means departments will need to operate with existing resources rather than expanding the procurement. Such policies are intended to control unnecessary spending and prioritize essential services. Officials in grade 20 and above will face a deduction equivalent to 2 days of salary. According to the Prime Minister, these funds will be directed toward public relief initiatives. While the financial impact of such deductions may be limited, they are meant to demonstrate shared responsibility across the administrative hierarchy. One of the most striking announcements was the ban on foreign travel for government officials. Federal ministers, advisors, and senior officials will not be allowed to undertake foreign trips during this period. Governors will also face the same restriction. Foreign trips often involve significant expenditure on travel, accommodation, and protocol arrangements. Limiting such visits can reduce costs and signal fiscal restraint. The government has also banned official dinners and iftar parties funded by the state. In addition, seminars and official events must now be held at government venues rather than expensive hotels. These decisions may seem small individually, but collectively they reflect an effort to reduce symbolic and ceremonial expenditure. The government has also announced changes in work patterns. Except for essential services, both government and private sectors will operate with 50% staff presence. This policy is designed to reduce commuting energy consumption and operational costs. Another measure is the introduction of a 4-day work week for government offices. Offices will open only 4 days per week with an additional weekly holiday. Such policies have implemented in various countries during energy crisis to reduce electricity and fuel consumption. The Prime Minister also announced that all schools will close for 2 weeks. During this period, educational institutions will transition to online classes. This decision is intended to reduce transportation and energy usage while maintaining continuity in education. However, it may also raise questions about digital accessibility and the effectiveness of online learning. Despite these measures, the Prime Minister emphasized that the government is making every effort to maintain economic stability. He acknowledged that the situation is challenging, but he insisted that the government is actively working to manage the crisis. Pakistan has faced similar economic pressures in the past, often triggered by global energy shocks. However, each crisis carries its own dynamics and requires a different policy response. For ordinary citizens, the most immediate concern is the rising cost of living. Fuel prices increases affect transportation, food prices, and electricity bills. When energy becomes expensive, the cost of nearly every product increases. This is why economic crises often translate into social pressure. Government must balance fiscal discipline with social protection. The coming weeks will reveal how effectively these policies are implemented and whether they succeed in stabilizing the situation. This was Trending Daily. I'm Makhdoom Shahabuddin. See you in the next episode.